That's all we need. Give us free. Congratulations, you have graduated. This level of matrix, you're a conjuration. No, you couldn't wait to be the program creator. That's what you were made for. That's why you were brainwashed. You are alpha, beta, zeta, programmed by your creator, and you call him your savior. What if you from bondage have a few jewels of knowledge? Congratulations, you have graduated this level of a matrix. You're a acculturation. I know you couldn't wait to be the program creator. That's what you were made for. That's why you were brainwashed. You are
Peace, 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 peace.
programmed by your enslaver.
Thank you so much for joining today. I am Ema Yakira-Eden here with Anu Life Global Ministries. I'm going to let that music end itself out really quietly. Give thanks. So I am Ema Yakira-Eden from the Alpha Woman. Well, I am that, but I'm doing the wrong intro. Today, I am Yakira-Eden from Anu Life Global Ministries, here to cover the day's midday affirmative. So welcome into the space. Peace, Master Menelek. Peace, Emanaya. Peace, Aki Jason. Peace, Margie Marie Art. Peace, Aki Darian. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Peace, Aki El Karar. Welcome into this space. Peace, Aki Zach. I'm so happy to see you all here. Please remember to share the link so that so that this information is expanding as we deliberate. I'm going to jump right in because, yeah, I'm excited. So first, of course, I have to offer praise. Ooh, just offer praise, gratitude, and so much thanks to the Heavenly Creator, that which decided to allow me another breath, allow you all the opportunity to be here together, to be reflections of light. I also have to thank and offer gratitude for the keeper of this space, the steward of Anu Life Global Ministries, our Chief Jegna, and my covering, Chief Yuya. Thank you for creating this, for being the incubator, right? For maintaining this space for us to incubate and to grow in, and to come to an understanding of who and what we be, more than who and what we do, because I'm learning each day how important the being is. So thank you. And of course, thank you to all of you all. Oh, peace, Lugal, and peace, Anu Radio. Thank you for being here. So with that, I like to do like affirmations, right? So I was like, do we want to do a meditation? No. So I wrote an affirmation that I wanted to share with you all. I will that you're in like a space where you can sit, be still, perhaps close your eyes, or not, right? You could be moving and just get in with this moving affirmation. I am going to have some music playing really low in the background. It will be manumitted again. And that is because as we get into the theme today, which it is intimacy, intimacy. And it's a play on, and I'll explain how I got there. It's a play on the word intimacy. And as I explored the concept of intimacy, I realized that these four words were in there, and it was a charge to me as to how intimacy even begins to work. So, oh, peace, Aki El Karar. I see you have two handles. Now you're changing it up. Aki Zach said I'll be writing them too, straight from the Satu house. Oh, so okay, so now I wrote this affirmative. This one is not. This one, yeah, straight from the dome. Well, straight from the dome as breathed into my mind through the Creator. Right. What is this? Intimacy, as said by Mike Myers. And oh, really? I don't know anything about that. You know what? I'm gonna take that off of here. I don't know anything about that, Luca. I know. Was he talking about intimacy? Now I have to go watch that movie. Anyway, let's get to the affirmation before everybody starts cutting up. Peace. Sovereign E to Koti Maria. Peace, peace. Thank you for being here. Welcome into the space. So we're going to jump in. So get comfortable. I'm going to read this affirmation and and let's get to it. Just take a deep breath. And I'll give a second for the music to join us as we settle into our breath. I move as fluidly as the leaf, peacefully guided by the ever-changing winds of time. As the buoy in ocean seas, perpetually afloat, gently swaying with the current and tides with ease. I am becoming, in each moment, effortlessly. Freedom, free form, free from I want, for there is no want, only being as I am called to be. Open, loving, patient, connected, intimately, into me, see, intimacy. Okay, take another breath. Breathe out. And let's begin. Let's begin. Give thanks. Peace. Safta Ahava. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being in this space. Peace. Peace to you all. Thank you for being here. So let me jump right into it. The theme for today, as I shared, is intimacy. Peace Akoti Yafe. Peace Abaras Kush. And the connective threads that I'm going to pull on is, of course, like defining intimacy or offering some level of definition for the word intimacy and how we gain intimacy through freedom, and more specifically, the freedom from detachment, like the freedom through detachment, how detachment helps us to maintain that level of freedom, and actually creates a space for us to be more intimate, and moving away from that I want, right, and moving to a state of I am. So with that, I'll share some of the references that I'm going to pull from. The scriptural references will be Jeremiah 9:23 and 24, and Psalms 139, 1 through 3, as well as some tips, some information about what you can do. And because those cannot come from me. I am definitely here to offer up some of what I have unearthed or been given to explore. And so I'm pulling from Chief's wisdom and instruction in a command the day, was command the day number 18. And the topic was, the name of the title was free. So I'm sure as I go through that'll wind up in the chat, but I just wanted to share in advance. So I started with the affirmation referencing things like fluidity and wind and, a buoy being afloat in water. Oh, thank you. A buoy being afloat in water, and then acknowledging freedom. And now the thing is, when I envision the leaf, right, kind of being thrown about in the wind, it doesn't always reflect like freedom or liberation. It could oftentimes feel like chaos, right? And stress and angst and worry. Even for someone who, like myself, I do not swim. And Master Menelek has made note of how I don't say that I can't swim, but I do not swim. Even the idea of being able to visualize being that buoy and just, maintaining, like, no matter what's happening, trusting that I can float resonated a sense of freedom, even for someone who doesn't swim yet. So I wanted to open there because by doing that, it allows us to silence that voice of fear. And the voice of fear is often, from what I was gleaning, that's what leads to the grabbing, right? The fear is what, like, if you think about it, even if you go on if you do roller coasters, which I have had my beautiful time with roller coasters over my life, there is a grabbing that happens because never mind the fact that you stood on line sometimes for hours to enjoy a ride, there is a fear, there is an excitement that happens. But I'm going to focus on the fear part, that you just start grabbing for anything, because you want to feel grounded even though you elected to jump on this ride. I'm actually going to try to stay with the chat. So let's see. Imagine watching someone drowning and screaming, "I don't swim." I should have stayed with my own momentum. Thank you for that. I don't think I'll be screaming it at that moment. Mm-mm, mm-mm. And I would only be swimming with those that I love and trust, and that love me and trust and know that I don't swim. So I wouldn't need to scream anything. They'd be right there. I will. And Aki El Kara says, yeah. You do not do roller coasters. I was a kid that stayed on the ground. All right, you stay with the bags. We needed one of those too. And adults, for everyone else rode the rides. We needed one of those too. But hopefully you can still get the analogy of, like, I mean, even if you've seen videos, I'm sure you do something. I mean, with all that military and weaponry stuff, I'm sure you can imagine what I'm talking about. Let's see. You better. In no sense of two folks drowning. Okay. Some have been thrown into water to learn to swim. Well, yeah, Safta, give thanks. No, thank you. Okay, so back to where we were. So oftentimes we need to sign. I'm going to go from here on. I'm using I, because these are the things that I have done, and I am learning or exploring, and willfully, you may see yourself or you may see someone. in there. So when I silence that fear, when I silence that grabby I want energy, or when I yield to it being silenced, what it creates space for is being, right? Just being present and reflecting the I am. What am I to be in this moment, right? As opposed to, well, I wanted this and I wanted it like that, and because it didn't happen, um I'm going to try to way to make it happen, to force it to happen, and staying in that very, very detached and in no way intimate space. Because in order to be intimate, I have to be vulnerable. I have to be like that I am. And that vulnerability, it takes honesty. It takes honesty, right? It takes me being honest about what the fear is, and recognizing that it's not, and acknowledging that it's not even real. And if you've been listening to Chief Yuya podcast, the series, the Jezebel series, then you understand exactly what I'm talking about. And to be quite honest, I'm not even equipped to come up with any sort of assessment about what I'm doing and why, because I'm coming from such an emotional place, right? So I'm going to offer you some of the definition. Before I do, um, Master Menelik says that, oh, that's how I learned to swim South Hava. Learn kicking and screaming. I'm more than willing to share that with my good sister. Mm-hmm. I appreciate your kindness, and I will stay away from the water. Aki Zach says, my grandfather stayed with the food when he went to the theme parks. I'm taking his role. Oh, you stayed with the cooler. Okay. I mean, the cooler, the bags. Yeah. What do you mean? You're on the get up here and the hiking, and you're on motor scooters in Mexico, or what, those motorcycles or dirt bikes. I don't know, but you were doing something. Um, and you don't do roller coasters? Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. In these years of life, they're not that fun. They upset my stomach quite a bit. I'm like, why did I not get dizzy and nauseous in my teens and 20s? What has happened to me? Um, but thank you for sharing. So as we jump into the theme of intimacy, I wanted to open with a question, and it's a one word type question, or answer anyway. I'd like you to offer me one word, the first word that comes to mind when you think of intimacy. What is the first thought you have? Be honest and put it in the chat. And of course, if you want to join me, I believe the link was placed in the very beginning of this chat. So feel free to jump in and jump online, and you can share your answers, or build with me. Okay, intimacy. So, and I'm going to come back to those. So I'm going to share a bit about what I discovered about intimacy. So, intimacy, as defined by Oxford, speaks to being closely acquainted or familiar, right? Or just being close, having a private or personal connection, or even being close friends. Now, Merriam-Webster took a slightly different direction. Um, and it speaks about anything that is of a private or personal nature, right? And then even the idea of intimate secrets, none of your business. I'm sorry. I was like, that's more than one word. What's being said there? So let me pivot to Chief Yuya's response. No worries. His one word is none of your business. It's for those I elect and never to be requested. So you cannot request intimacy. There you have it. And I'll read everyone else's in a moment. I just saw something that was definitely not one word. So the idea of intimacy is also marked by a very close association, even a contract or familiarity. Um, so the suffix on intimate, right, is the C. And that C part is actually like activating an action or a practice or a state of being. So it's like the state of being intimate. So the being comes from us like we have to move into something, move into a more vulnerable place in order to have intimacy, which is something we're gonna, you know, kind of exchange back and forth. Though you can have intimacy with yourself, right? And that's being able to have a true relationship with the self. Like I know Chief has spoken about there being times in our lives when we have to have music in the background. Like we don't want to be with ourselves. We don't want to be with our thoughts or even be honest about what our thoughts are. So we're not able to have that intimate relationship with ourselves. Um, to dig. So before I get into that, let me just go back. So I have relationship, closeness, connection, privacy, love, touching, close contact, none of your business. That I just had a salt and pepper song go in my head. I'm sorry. um, trust, honesty, and Master Menelik says first choice closeness, second choice bow chicka wow wow. Yes, yeah. Um, Oh yeah, I know that word. Bow chicka wow wow. Um, yeah, I. So I'm gonna be honest. When I initially was offered the word intimacy, I immediately thought of sex. That was like, I mean, y'all put all this other stuff, and yes, intimacy I've learned includes those things. But and maybe I'm the only one other than Master Menelek who shared it. But I was actually curious if anyone was going to. And yes, intercourse is one level of, and it's a level of physical intimacy. But I have learned it's not the beginning at all. But again, maybe I'm the only one who needed that lesson. Um, And then Aki Jason says vulnerability with others or self. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for engaging. Is that why for me? I'll assume it is. Why? Why did I connect intimacy with sex? If that's what you're asking, let me know. In the meantime, so intimacy. So the first definition that I offered was for intimate. So intimacy um, comes from the Latin word intimare, which means to impress or to make familiar, which comes from intimus, which means the inmost or innermost parts. So it's like opening oneself up to the innermost parts of ourselves or connecting with the innermost part of another. Okay, so yes. So why did I think of sex? Because that was the only way that I connected with the idea of intimacy. Yeah. It was when I think of intimacy or when I thought of intimacy, I thought of that physical act and not many of the other ways that one can be intimate. I remember uh, I was told, well, watching a movie can be very intimate. I'd actually never considered that at all. And why, if you ask why, I don't know the origins of the answer to that question at this point. But I am choosing to be vulnerable and honest enough to say that was my initial like intimacy. Oh, sex. Yeah. Um, so again, connecting to that inner and let me know if I am to dig any deeper and yeah, and disclose any further, I'll do my best to do that. Um, oh, my pleasure. When So I shared a bit as in the opener. Now I have to go back and watch this movie. But even when thinking about that innermost part of oneself, or sharing from that intimate place, even our thoughts, you know, being honest and open about one's thoughts, um, is a very intimate thing, I have discovered. So, so when meditating on the word intimacy, I shared that I began to see it broken down, and see it broken down into me see. And when I thought of that being something that I would share here and even entitle this particular bill, this a particular affirmative, I thought how ironic, um, coming from the person who, even entering into Anu, it's been several years now, but in the very beginning, I would say for the first 3 or 4 months, um, I was very quiet, very quiet. I would answer questions, I would respond, but I wanted to stay in the back. I wanted to not be seen, but still see what everybody else was doing, which was actually very selfish. Um, and when I finally acknowledged, like, I don't want to be seen, uh, ever, ever, even coming on to do these lives. I don't feel that way as strongly anymore. But there's still that I don't have to be the one. Like, I'm good. I'll put it that way. I'm good in the background. Like, I'm good being on production side, or, being the one to kind of say, yeah, I had that pistol. We remember Chief told you about the pistol. I don't even have any pistols. That was Chief disclosing things that I don't know, maybe I did have one. I didn't know about it. But yes, Zach, I'm sure you do remember. I just did not want to be seen. But really it was that I did not want to be vulnerable, right? Which really meant I didn't want to connect. So even though I was in a space, in a community, or entering into a community where I was clear on what the mission was, right? Or at least I had a sense of what the charge was. And I thought, I said to myself, I wanted to connect. I was not willing to give anything. I was not willing to be open. And I would not even have considered the word intimate, be intimate with these people, right? Or with this community, because as I shared, I thought intimacy was sex, right? So that wouldn't even come to mind. But when I looked at the idea of intimacy, and I'm trying to watch the time, but it's gonna be what it's gonna be, y'all. I kind of thought, wow, that's interesting, um, and a little story. Even as a child, I, I only remember doing this in one house, and it was as a really small child, 5, 6, 7, around that age. In this particular home, there was a really big closet. And that closet was in the perfect position to be a part of everything that was happening. When I jotted this down, I was like, you're just being a sneaky, nosy behind kid. But I didn't want to be seen, but I still wanted to know what was going on. And so I would sit in that closet and observe everything that was happening within the house. And sometimes I would just sit in there and just hide, just to not be seen and to not be bothered, and to not have connection. And maybe that's why I don't know what intimacy is, right? Maybe even as a child, I didn't get it, or I didn't want it, or I didn't make the connection that what I was receiving were acts of intimacy. That's a little bit more to your why. Um, Okoti Maria. Let's see. Aki Jason says, I can understand that, LOL. Being an Anu is humbling. Yeah, everyone is so far beyond. We are, and then we are so not. Right? I think that's the thing. Like that's the message. Look, I'm here sharing about intimacy, and I'm sharing also very vulnerably that everything y'all gave as your first word and your first thought would not have been mine. Period. Right? So while maybe our new sisters and brothers who responded, those were their initial thoughts, but maybe there are others that are not Anu that will hear this message and be like, yeah, that was my first thought too. So let's see if she got from here to one little micro step. Let's see. So it's not necessarily that we're so beyond. It's like we're striving, and that's all we ever really can do is strive. So thank you, Jason. And yeah, you come with some deep thought, period, from the entry. So glad you're a fellow Anu member. So Master Menelik says, right, you don't have one because it technically belongs to the state when you were a warden. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what this means. Right, you don't have one because it technically belonged to the state when you were a warden. I don't have what? Oh, the pistol! Oh, come on! Don't distract me. Doing something serious here, people. I was like, I don't have intimacy. I was so lost just now. I'm like, when I was a ward of the state, like I was never in foster care. I went down a completely different path. I was so far in my vulnerability disclosure bag, I got lost. It was like the bag was falling on me just now. I'm like, wait, let me out. What's he talking about? I get it. Also, you do know if you're trying to claim that I was a warden, you do know you keep your pistol now. So you think on that one. Sitting back and judging is what many like to do, Akizak says. As many like to do, but don't want to put themselves on a chopping block. Absolutely. And I would even venture to say that those of us who come forward and who are, charged, inspired, and instructed to be here on screen, we're also being charged to do that, right? To be vulnerable. We don't get the chance to hide out in the background or to just, live in the chat or to even just sit and be one of those eyeballs, right? Up at the top of my screen, I see a little eye with the number 17. I don't get to be an eye that talk about the eye in the sky. I don't get to be an eye who doesn't even enter the chat. We are charged to be vulnerable, to be free, to allow ourselves to be open enough so that we can connect, because which you may connect with may not have been in any of those other podcasts or any of those other lives that I have done. It may be in me saying what I said about intimacy or something that I say going forward. So thank you for that point, Akizak. Let's see. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, Aki Jason. Yep. You included. Give it a minute. Yeah. Being in a collective brings out hidden strengths and unearths suppressed weaknesses. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. What he said? He was back to take a message. I don't know. I don't know. Don't know what that one means either. Sorry. Okay, Margie. Oh, we're moving all over. Okay. Wait. Okay. So Margie Marie Art says, I often think of intimacy as being naked. Yeah. Yep. Yep, when we're not wearing any mask or lies, concealing what's really there. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yes, I would agree. Um, it makes me, what you shared makes me think of the idea of just that, just that being naked, and there is no amount of sucking anything in or even choosing to not suck anything in or adjust your angle or position your back in a certain way or your shoulders in a certain way, but just allowing things to fall as they fall and trusting that that allows for you to connect with for you to connect, period, because that level of intimacy and honesty may very well be with you in the mirror, right? Looking at the man in the mirror. Now, what else? I know we were jumping around. So let's see. So Akotiafe says, and I'm going to say for all of y'all who don't know, I know my Anu family knows, I have worn glasses. I'm going to say it that way. But I'm not wearing them on these any further. So you will see me squint and lean in when I need to read these small little captions. But it says, my first introduction to the word did have a more sexual context. Well, thank you. I'm like, am I the only one? Maybe I am. But my first introduction to the word did have a more sexual context. However, after being exposed to different levels of conversations and settings, that's when I learned it had a deeper meaning. Absolutely. Thank you, Okotiafe. Okay, let's see. Thank you. Sometimes, so Margie Marie Art also says sometimes there is a fear of being intimate. I often think of a flood of water. That moment you are intimate. Yeah, yeah, and that fear could be even the fear of vulnerability. And actually that's going to connect to something I'll share when we get to like the the information, the instruction that Chief provided, or the insight Chief provided in the command the day that's called free. Because he's actually speaking about the idea that guilt, and even stretching it, if we do, to the idea of fear, if we have those things, we can't get to truth, we can't get to a vulnerable connection. So absolutely. um don't be laughing at me. Okay, yeah, she was cracking up because you knew I couldn't see without my glasses. I can see. So let me tell you, I'm gonna take a moment to share how my screen is situated. So I'm on an iPad, and I have my screen split. So on this half, let's see, this half of the screen, right? I have StreamYard, and on the other half, let me try to do this right. This half, I have my notes. So everything is smaller because it's cut into halves on my screen, and I still can see. How about that? I just have to squint and zoom in a little bit. Um, and also my notes in OneNote are on like super large, but apparently I think better without my glasses, so we're gonna go with it. All right, so that was kind of the opening, and like the me sharing a bit about how we got here, how I got here anyway. And I've only just arrived, clearly. So I want to share with you some scriptural reference, and then we're going to dig into what Yah has to say about intimacy, or even the idea of being known. And before we even get into the scripture, I want to acknowledge that being known in scripture, and I'm not going to pull the scriptures, but maybe you all can share ones that you're familiar with. Peace, Shirla, peace. The ability to bring forth joy and laughter for me is a form of intimacy. I would agree. Okay, so now you're answering, but let me give you the original question. The original question was to give one word, and the first word that comes to mind when you speak of intimacy. Um, you be all right, B. People lose their glasses every day. I can read that one. I know that one like the back of my hand. Paid them full. Okay. So yes, Charlotte, if you don't mind answering with one word about what intimacy, and I should have framed it different, like, not in our heightened state of consciousness. Um, but yeah, sometimes knowing is used to demonstrate. So, thank you. Yep, that was exactly where I was going before I started reading the chat. So 1 second, let me read this. Absolutely. So I was getting right there. Thank you for pulling me there, Akotiafe. I wanted to acknowledge that even in Bereshit, it talks about Hawa being known, right? And he knew her. And throughout scripture, we'll see that often, that he knew, right? He knew like he was betrothed, and then he knew this woman. Um, and that is the connotation there is sexual intercourse, or actually consummating the union that is marriage, which connects us back to the intimacy, or intimacy also being like a contract or an agreement. And Charlotte is naked. Yeah, give thanks, give thanks. Somebody else shared that as well. I think maybe a couple of people. So I wanted to give kind of that little note about that idea of knowing, because what I found very interesting in just doing like a keyword search, right? The word intimacy or intimate is not at all in, at least the King James version of the Bible, and it was only actually referenced twice in a different translation, and it directly connected with sexual intercourse, so it didn't really reflect any of what the point here would be. But as I dug further, um this is what I found. So I'm going to share something from Jeremiah 9:23 and 24. Thus saith, okay, I'm going to read it from here. Just saith Yah, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Yah, which exercises loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith Yah. Let me tell y'all. When I started like digging and exploring and just meditating on these two lines, I got so much. But before I get into that, of course, I want to tell you a bit about Jeremiah, right? And I knew we are taught to look at who's speaking, who they're speaking to, and what's happening at that time. So I am going to give that to you. So Jeremiah, first, the name Jeremiah actually does mean, would mean, Yah will raise, or Yah has exalted. And to exalt is to raise up or to glorify, or to hold in high praise. So that's like the attribute, right? That is his charge as he's moving through the world. So I have to imagine that they knew what their names meant. And so it as we and Anu are given, those of us who have been given divine names, we had to go dig and explore and discern what our names mean, and recognize that we aren't necessarily that thing today, but that is what should be pushing and compelling and giving us the momentum, as we are being in the world, period. So that was what his name means. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna stop. The term intimate is usually correlated with sexual encounters in media, even with those you're not familiar with. Being intimate is a common, euphemism for sex, which limits our perspective of it. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. And Akizak says, makes me think of the movie yesterday. Yes, when Dogon went to see the ruler, he said, yep, I'm going to see a man, and his physician was wearing him out. Yeah. Not only that piece of the movie Zen, I would also say, Akizak, that in preparing for today and in exploring the idea of intimacy and its relationship to honesty and detachment, the scene where he went to see that ruler and helped him come to a state of clarity when that ruler said, immediately that ruler went right back into his flesh, right? He went right back into his attachments and says, oh, you can come out of the mountains now. I'll build you an ashram so big, like you'll have pretty much, you could have everything I have. And he said no. And it was in that moment I realized, oh, it's because he has no attachment to that. Like, it's like, I'm gonna make you the head of a mega church. No, thank you. That's not going to actually keep me where I need to be, because where I need to be is sitting, right? Not beholden to you. And he was wedded to that truth, because that was true. That was the truth. So thank you for sharing that. So back to Jeremiah. So Jeremiah he was the son of a priest in Judah, and he is a prophet, right? So there's the book of Jeremiah. And Jeremiah's role was to pretty much share the word of Yah as dictated to him to his scribe. I thought this was interesting because in the womb space yesterday, we were studying Hebrew. I was stuttering Hebrew, but we were, as a sisterhood, we were studying Hebrew. And I actually had a question, and I didn't even connect that. I had already had this in my notes. So his scribe's name was Baruch. And I thought that was interesting because I immediately connected Baruch with Barak, right? Or whose name means to be blessed. So we have the one that Yah will uphold or exalt, dictating these words to he that is blessed, right? And Jeremiah was chosen for this mission based on his undeniable courage. And his courage was connected to his courage to actually speak to the people of Judah on behalf of Yah, and to offer them warning about what would befall us/them if they were not more obedient. So with that, I actually want to read it again. Like, now that you have a little bit about the context, and I didn't even tell you what was happening. So to give you a sense of what was happening at the time, those good Hebrews, they were being defiant and disobedient. They were kind of existing onto an island, like among themselves. It's like, I'm gonna be around these people, but I'm gonna just do me. I'm not gonna follow the rules. I'm not gonna do as I'm expected to do. And you have Jeremiah saying, hey, this is what our Creator told us to do. Now, while he's giving these warnings, you have Assyria, Egypt, and ultimately Babylon kind of like closing in. Meanwhile, as some of my brethren who share here have touched on, there's still just party and BS happening, right? Nobody's listening. And so I'm going to read again the passage of scripture. It says, "Thus saith Yah, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth, because everyone isn't doing that. Let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, and that I am the Yah which exercise loving kindness, judgment, righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight." So I'm gonna get into it a little bit. before I do, let's see, Akizak was saying a few things. I also put that with my encounters with Chief. I would always think of what the angle was and what he wanted. I never saw fame, money, or females as a motive, just like when the Dogon was offered. Yeah. To come out of the mountains. Yeah, very rare thing. Absolutely. Absolutely. So just in those two passages, that, like I said, there's so much being shared. And I want to talk about how I saw it connected with intimacy. So everything in verse 23 speaks about attachment, right? It speaks about being attached to wisdom. And I want to draw some connections, right? So you celebrate or you revel in, you know, you glorify your wisdom or how smart you are, but can you ever be wise enough? Do you ever have the epitome? Can you ever personify the epitome of wisdom? um if you're wise, you know you cannot, right? Right. And then it's like, okay, if you're strong or if you're mighty, you're reveling in that might. You're reveling in something that's really fleeting, because you may be a strong mighty warrior today and you're reveling in that, but you're aging, you're slowly dying each and every day. So it's like, you're not strong enough, you're never strong enough, right? Particularly if you acknowledge that we are growing old. And let's not even begin to talk about riches. Who is ever, right? Anyone, well, I'll say, who, when they're seeking to glorify themselves based on their wealth or their riches, will ever be rich enough, right? It made me think of Scrooge McDuck. Always need more money, always want more money, always thinking of ways to get more money, and not necessarily using it for anything other than to glorify having it, or to, you know, hold yourself up around having that. So I really appreciate that. That's what Yah is calling out first. Like, what I'm about to say is to these people right here. These are the folks that I'm talking to. So you can go ahead and you can count your paper, and you can flex your muscles, and you can write your scrolls and your scribes, and you can, you know, pat yourself on the back for how smart you think you are. But you need to know this, right? As you're doing all of that, which actually detaches you from me, I want to remind you of something. So Aki Zak says, makes me think of an Eastern philosophy versus Western philosophy. One will say, the more I know, right, the smarter I am. And the other will say, the more I learn, the less I seem to know. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know what that is scrolling. Oh, okay. And then Master Manelek says, I always wondered how Scrooge McDuck never got a concussion from diving. You know what? I'm with you. Because he had gold coins, like a room full of gold and a diving board. Come on. Why did he not die? Like, why was he not concussed? That's a good point. Okay, so again, in order for us to have that intimate relationship with Yah, or to glorify Yah, we need to understand, right? We need to understand or connect with Yah. And then he lays out what that intimate relationship would have you know, or what it would reveal. And it will reveal that Yah is loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness, right? And that he delights in doing that in the earth. Now, I thought it was interesting that Yah is making it very clear that I delight in doing this, offering you loving kindness. The next one is judgment. How I'm going to say, How often do I hide or close myself off out of fear of being judged, out of fear of being seen, um, and not wanting to receive correction, right? Um, and it follows here loving kindness. It's preceded by loving kindness. So yeah, saying, yeah, if you stop just celebrating yourself and with things that really don't matter, or hiding or attempting to hide from me, and glorifying things that don't matter, what you'll discover is that the glory is in knowing me. Because if you get to know me, what you'll recognize is loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness. This is what I have for you. This is what knowing me will reveal. This is the intimate relationship that you can have. um and it specifically, Yah's delight in the earth, not in the heavens, not in Mars, not in Venus. And I just thought, why is it specifically the earth, Anubians? When you start looking at scripture with the understanding that is, carefully planted into us, these words have such a different or clearer meaning. But I had to kind of take the little side path over to the fact that, yeah, it's saying, these are the things I delight on in the earth. Like, I do these things here for you, Israelites, here. If you were not, not listening every day, B, pretty much. Let's see. There we go. Thank you. Concussion never crossed my mind. Only was swimming in the dough. That's all I thought. I did think of concussion. Because the coins actually like clinked. It wasn't quiet. Yeah. Anyway. Master oh, sorry. Master Manelik says the images of reveling in riches make no sense sometimes. Yeah, but we still buy into the fantasy of what it would be like. Yes, what it would be like. Chasing that feeling takes us on a detour from our destiny. It is never enough. It is never enough. And it actually is when it's that chase, right, with no larger vision, with no connection to Yah. We are taught that that's not even freedom, right? You're in bondage. And so the freedom is recognizing that, or whatever you are attached to, um perhaps as a tool, right? Perhaps as a tool, or at least being able to recognize it for what it is what the freedom would be, right? Recognizing the truth. New Radio says that makes me think, is there a possibility to have an intimate relationship with things, or does intimacy require those connections with people? That's a good question. So how would you have an intimate relationship with a thing? On New Radio, like, how would you, like, based on even the definition or the words that everyone offered as it pertains to what intimacy is, how would you have that with a thing or an inanimate object? Like, I'm curious. um yeah, I don't know. I'm talking about Acme coins. Okay, so, and back to what I'm talking about here. So in the idea of that loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness, um, this is where Yah is making the distinction, right? That's the idea of detachment. When things are offered, when we're looking to get something, we're immediately severing ourselves from the opportunity of connection. So I want you to think of just rushing through the grocery store, or it has to be if you don't have like easy pass, but like being on the line to pay a toll. And in those quick moments where you have the opportunity to connect, to share a moment of intimacy with another. And even as you're saying, or they're saying, how are you? You're kind of walking by. Oh, I'm fine, thank you. So it's like a line is cast for there to be an intimate exchange with a stranger, even for a second. But we're so wrapped up in the I gotta finish the time, the whatever my mission is, that you actually lose the opportunity to be in that moment, to connect with another person. In what can be a very intimate fashion. Sometimes, and this I did recognize about intimacy. Sometimes it's just exchanging a glance, or as my grandmother would say, my two eyes made four, or our eyes made four, which means my two connect with your two. Can be very intimate, even with a stranger. Just or to communicate a particular message, like, girl, did you see that? Or whatever it is. That happens a lot. I don't know I see some exclamation points. I don't know what's happening in the chat. Let me go back. So, okay. So Aki Zach says, it took me on a detour too. That's all I thought about was the money. Then I learned a line in a Kanye song that said, having money is not everything. Not having it is. Okay. Well, Yafe says, I think those relationships with inanimate objects would be the ultimate example of your things owning you. Yes, thus it isn't real. Yeah, absolutely. Aki Zach says, that's when you get these people making love to their car. Going back to that line that Chief put, I don't know. I want to assume that's not actually happening, but I don't even want to know. Don't answer that. I don't know what that would be. But it goes back to that line that Chief put up from Fight Club. The things we own end up owning you. Yes, the things you own end up owning you. Fight Club is like my most favorite. It's one of my top 3 most favorite movies in the world. Which may need to change. It has been in the past. So Imanai says, Anu Radio, that makes me think of how some love money and use people instead of using money and loving people, right? Love being the connection. And you can develop connection by being close, but opting not to be close to people. Being close to people because of the vulnerability required. Yeah. Lack of vulnerability creates a separation, right? It moves us away from having the opportunity to connect, because those that are open and vulnerable are like, it's almost like receptors are there and present and looking for opportunities to connect. But if I'm not vulnerable, if I'm not honest or naked, then I might see those connections, I might see those lines, but I probably won't even notice them. And if I do notice them, I won't know how to attach to them. I won't know how to connect. So whether it's an active choice or not, once you're not vulnerable, you don't get the opportunity to have an intimate experience, to have an intimate exchange with another. And Akizak says, yeah, it wouldn't be bi-directional. That's for dang sure. Absolutely. So then having intimacy with an inanimate object would, based on what you're describing here, then speak to why we should not masturbate. I'm just going to say it. Right? Because that wouldn't be a bi-directional interaction. right? I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. Marjorie Marie Art says that was okay. All the exclamations were amen. Okay, or an amen. Okay. For what you were saying about missing those opportunities to connect. Give thanks. Master Manelek says makes me think of the intimacy between strangers during sundress season. Did you see that, bra? Yep, I sure did. Okay. I can't pre-read these beforehand because I can't see. I'm just stumbling into all kind of stuff. Okay. It's a show on it's a show on TV called My Strange Addictions. Oh, okay. Okay. Some of it could be fabricated for TV. Yeah, but the premise is still the same. Okay. And TLC. Okay, I thought you were saying TV. So yeah. Right. So people have all sorts of addictions. And I guess some people are addicted to their vehicle. Okay. I'm gonna do the last few comments here and then get back to the yeah, just we're gonna get back to it. I think there is an attempt to conjure intimacy with things, especially now, but that would be because there is confusion to what it is and to force intimacy where there is none. Right. And you know what, with that, even thinking about technology, right? Like I am communicating with you all while sitting in this space with the camera, laughing and talking. And some people may think this is the only level of intimacy, or having their phone and, not even looking up at the people who are right in front of them, but rather just on their phone, just doing this. That's it. So intimacy is the idea of intimacy is being adulterated. Absolutely. Aki Jason says, like Aki Zach said in his last segment, use money to create relationships, not relationships to create money. Yeah. No, that's tricking the body into a fake high with dopamine. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. So Koti Maria says, this makes me consider then that we ought to be compassionate and understanding when engaging with others. We don't get to pick those opportunities, right, or how to connect. I would agree. I would agree. And that's why I use such a, I'll say benign, but such a common example. I mean, even just, being a former New Yorker, just being in a car and living down south, it's like you look over and you see the person in the car next to you. It's like, hey, just that is is connecting. And you don't know that person. I remember one time I was driving and half my skirt's kind of big sometimes, y'all. Half my skirt was hanging out the car. And this gentleman is driving and he's honking. And I'm like, what's happening? And I will say the New Yorker in me initially was like, I'm not stopping. I don't care what you need. I don't care what this is. I'm not stopping. But then I slowed down and I opened my window and I said, hello. And he says, I've been trying to tell you, your skirt is out the car, dragging on the ground. Yeah. So, choosing to not connect sometimes, could mean, it always is going to mean you're losing out on something that the creator probably had for you. Simple. And as she said, it's like the first part was none of your business. The second part is it's not something you can ask for, right? So we can't ask for that. And Chief is saying, but I think if we think about it, it's not something we should or need to ask for. It's something that if we are doing it, it's when naturally those connections are going to make. Never mind my big hands in the camera. Those connections are just naturally going to be made because the opportunity to connect is always there. It's like something that I touched on in, I just thought about it in my book, Scriptural Guide for Overcoming 7 Mental Ailments. And it's in the chapter that talks about loneliness. Or the idea of being lonely or alone. And there's an activity. And the activity that I asked you to do is simply to go in nature. Like, choose to be alone, make the decision to be alone, and go sit in nature. And then just observe how many insects, how many blades of grass tickle your neck or tickle your feet, or, what birds come and fly over, or all that connects with you in that moment. Those are all opportunities for a connection. I can't tell y'all how beautiful it was to have the experience of laying on a park bench. Yes, I said, and not in New York. So don't try to be funny, y'all. Not in New York. Going to a park and wanting to sit by the water, to do nothing for several hours, and deciding this is the best spot. There was a clearing where all the trees were like super high, but because of where the path was, there was a clearing there, but I was close enough to the water. And I laid out on that park bench and just observed the trees and the sky and the plants and the water and leaves. And I can tell you every detail, even though that was like last spring, because it was that intimate of an experience, just to be able to connect, even with the ant that was like making its way to me, and just being like, I see you. Well, okay, what are we doing here? What are you traveling looking for? If my approach were kill it, run, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this, then, or whatever, it negates the opportunity. Like, my memory would not have been any of what it wound up being. Even when Sister Maria shared about what she observed happening in the trees with the birds, and it's like she took that time, and that was in our fellowship build that she shared that experience. She took the time to connect. She took the time to be vulnerable enough to just not give it a series. I mean, she did lay out a story, but to actually just observe and to be intimately connected in that moment. No, I gave you a height if I could fit on a park bench. Whatever. Chief has already given my height, and then he's shrunk me down all along. I think so has Master Menelek. It's all good. It don't even matter. Yes, I can comfortably sleep on a park bench. Works for me. Sorry, it don't work for you. Sorry, you can't have that park bench life experience like I can now without being crumpled up. I was like spread, like I was free. Very funny. I have my own food. I have my snacks. When I go to do my do nothings, I'm prepared. I don't pack as much as I used to, because I had some clarity. I got some clarity. Like, you doing the most. You overpacked. You don't even eat half of this stuff. You're not going like for a month in the woods. You're going to a park for 5 hours. So I have food, and I will say a few people, but again, the people that were running on the path, because I was laying down and I was looking directly up, or to the side to the lake, I didn't really notice the people, because they were like on the path, which was kind of, anyway, you being funny. There ain't nobody offer me no food, and I don't think I looked. I mean, I didn't look hungry. Very, very funny. Y'all got jokes. And 5'4" is very generous. Yaki Zach knows I'm not no 5'4". He's just saying that's I guess the length of a park bench. It's all good. We're talking about a New York park bench, right? No, I was not in New York. Let me get back to, I should not have tried to connect with y'all people. All right. Back to where we were. Yeah. So I was sharing with you all some of the points that I gleaned from Jeremiah, and the value of knowing or coming to that place of an intimate relationship with Yah, and how it connects to attachment, which means we can't be we have to be detached. No, how it comes from a place of detachment. So we can't be attached, pardon me, to wealth or to whatever. We can't be attached, right? We really need to know, and even to know one another. In the Anu way, when it talks about courtship and betrothal, one of the initial things that it says, and I'm completely paraphrasing here, but it speaks about how valuable it is, that courtship is not necessarily to lead to union, but really the value of knowing your Anu brother or sister. So courtship is intended to help know one another more intimately, to connect more intimately. And obviously now I'm not talking sex, right? I'm not talking anything amorous. I'm talking genuine communication, exchanging, sharing, connecting, loving, right? Loving your sister, loving your brother, period. And that is also, I would imagine, the sort of knowing that we should have and explore. And if we're doing our daily reading of scripture and daily reading of the Anu way, we'll come to know those to know that as well. So when I think about or talk about knowing, I could not talk about David, right? King David. And speaking of a similar intimacy with Yah, when he says in Psalms 139, 1-3, and if you're not in Anu, for those that are, Psalms 139 should be very familiar. Although we explored the latter portion, what we discovered is the beginning connects directly to the end. And in Psalms 139, it reads, "O Yah, that have searched me and known me. Thou hast searched me and known me. Thou hast knowest my down sitting and my uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. Thou compasseth my path," right? "And my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways." So you've searched me and you've known me. You've known my down sitting, you know my uprising. You understand my thoughts, even my far off thoughts. This is all acknowledging, like, I'm naked. You got my whole playbook, everything. And I'm acknowledging that you have my playbook. And I thought this was a nice counter to the charge, right? The charge that Jeremiah was sharing with the people of Judah. Yeah, in that instance, is saying, tell those people who think highly of themselves that they should be thinking highly of me, because I know these things about them, right? I have already searched them. I already know them. So everything that David is acknowledging here, the way I connected it was like, that's what those people I need to recognize. I'm already seen. So wanting to not be seen is just preventing me from having connection, having a level of intimacy that is already there for me to actually have. But I'm my own impediment. Um, yeah, to be seen, right? In all my ways, and to be seen into me. So it's like, again, that intimacy is to like see into me. That's ultimately what I wanted to share with you all. Um and that can be, and that the levels of being seen into, like, we've given lots of examples, but it's like it can be a neighbor, particularly for the women in our new, like, our coverings. They see into us, right? We as sister and brother, the sisters amongst ourselves, and the brothers, of course, see us. And it takes that, lying there naked and honestly seeking that judgment, seeking and expecting that judgment, recognizing that it's preceded by loving kindness. Just as Yah stated in the Jeremiah scripture, it's preceded by loving kindness. So the judgment will come, but so will the righteousness. That's it. That's it. Let's see. I'm going to read the chat, and then I'm going to offer the, like, what can we do? And again, I can't give you any of what can be done, of course, because I'm not qualified, and that's that. But Chief Yuya, like I said, in the Command the Day number 18, which was dated September 27th, 2021, on the Anulek Global Ministries channel, I know there's a playlist. It's the one that's named Free. But before I get into those things that we can do, or things that we can consider, I'll just go through the chat. Master Menelik says, spreading out on a park bench, not needing a step ladder to reach the glassware in the cupboard. What? I do need a step ladder to reach the glass. I don't know. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Okay. So Kotiape says, I had a very intimate experience traversing campgrounds in the rain with Dr. Gertrude and 3 of her grandbabies, Ema Yakira and Abayada Ram. Was my daughter there as well? I think she was. We now share that funny moment. I think she was. I think I still hear about that story. I think she was. That's hilarious. Master Menelik says the purpose. Yeah, thank you. Oh, he put it in there. Thank you. Because I was definitely paraphrasing. The purpose of our courtship is for the two to know one another. If this has happened, the courtship has been a success. It is a wonderful thing to get to know a fellow Anu member. Absolutely. Thank you. And that's a quote from the Anu Way. He knows all the little quirks we may have. Yep. And where the quirk comes from and its triggers. Very true. Thank you. Master Menelik says the purpose. Oh, I knew it. I was paraphrasing, but I did know it. There's no hiding. Yeah, I would agree. And not only is there no hiding, we should not even want. We shan't want, right? So we're not wanting to hide. We're not wanting to separate ourselves. We are being open, right? Like we observed in the movie Zen yesterday. And if you watched it, if you listened to Chief Yuya's last podcast and you watched Zen at 5:35, which is the time that we began watching Zen, you would have seen the purpose was like, well, what do you do? When the ruler asked, well, what is this thing that you're doing? The answer was, we sit. You don't chant. Well, what are you saying? Like, what chants are you using? Like what? No, we sit and we sit. And throughout that entire movie, I literally thought of myself. How many times I foolishly disconnected because I'm like, okay, well, what's next? Okay, yeah, okay, I did that. So what do I do now? Okay. You leave no space. Like you leave no space. I left no space. I leave no space for the being to happen, for that connection to just remain. Or to even to happen, to come into, okay, that's the Command the Day link, to come together. So I'm going to close out with just a few things, a few thoughts from the Command the Day number 18. I know there's a slide on it, so we're going to get to that. So this is I'm calling it the path to intimacy. These are a few of the tips that Chief Yuya covers in the free Command the Day. It is actually also a podcast, and it's a section in the build where he talks about freedom and bondage, and he says to allow the divine to work through you, right? The idea of doing what you want is the bondage. So again, it's that want. It's like, I want this and I want that. And that's it's the attachment. Our attachment is our bondage. That's what prevents us from connecting. And what precedes that, which isn't here, and if you listen, you'll if you watch the video, you'll get it. He says true freedom is to just allow, right? So true freedom is to just allow the divine to work through you. That allowance is that yielding that I was trying to depict in the opening of the affirmative. The allowing, being that leaf that allows the wind to just move you to and fro, or being that, in Zen, being the Buddha, or being the you that can sit and just sit and not expect to see something or experience something, because even that is a level of, that is attachment, but being completely detached and present. The second thing that I pulled from that build that I wanted to share with you all is that the truth will make you free when you know it. And again, there's that knowing, right? Which we've already touched on, is that level of intimacy. So getting intimate with the truth, and knowing the truth is a very intimate thing, which is the next line here. And the third thing is, you can't be free and have guilt at the same time. It does not work. It does not work. So just taking yourself back to any idea that you may have had about shame or fear, or, oh, I'm sorry, hold on, I was hearing something, and then Akizaki's here with us. Taking any idea that you may have about fear or guilt, and completely recognizing that that's only coming because we are attached. We can come off of this slide, and we are wanting for something that we don't need to want for. Peace, Akizak. Thank you for joining. Jump right in.
Yeah, when you were sharing, it made me think, and going back to that movie, and even with the last piece on your slide, is you can't be free and still living in the past. And that was one of the things, even in the movie's end, when I forgot what her name was, but she was like, I want to be a nun. And he was like, well, no. And she's like, oh, it's because of what I did, but brought that up. And he's like, no, you have to free yourself from that. It's not one that you can't still move forward. It's like that. What's that song, Bag Lady? Like, you're not going to get very far. Yeah, pulling all of these bags. And that's one of the things that even in my own journey of having to move on from, okay, you no longer are class. I mean, because one of the, I used to introduce, if you meet football players, which are different than basketball players will introduce themselves by their first name. Football players will say their first and last name because you can't see their face.
Oh.
They're like, yeah, but you can see my name on the back of the jersey, so therefore you might put two and two together. But that's one of the things that even when I was like, oh, you no longer are playing this sport, so you no longer can identify as, this is a part of you, and it was a part of your journey. But the more you keep holding on to this, then the more you keep now restricting yourself from moving forward into what the other possibilities could be into your life, because you now are holding on to, oh yeah, I played football, I was in the NFL, I was in college football, whatever the case may be. And then it starts to bleed into now what is your agenda to try to get some type of fame or some type of notoriety back into that? So now, yeah, well, what if I join Anu? Then I'll be able to learn this information, and I'll be able to learn. And then all of a sudden, when people start pointing the finger at, well, hold on, this is where your character is short. This is where you need to start to now adjust in your own walk and your own movement. Then it's like, oh no, I didn't come here for all of that, right? But now when people are on the path, though, of detaching themselves from the, and that's one thing that I put in the chat, which I'm saying up here too, is when I met Chief, like it's so rare to meet somebody who you keep trying to figure out what their angle is. Like, what do you want, man? Like, why are you doing this? Yeah, I know people who put on these shows and they always talk about, I'm doing this for the community and I'm doing this for you. But ultimately, though, they're doing it because something is coming back to them, like money or notoriety and some fame, or they have access to more females now. And the more you sit around him, the more it's like, that's not the agenda here. It's not, because there's no discrimination. You can get it, you can get it, you can get it. And I don't care if I've known you for 18 years or if I've known you for 8 minutes, you're gonna get the same person. Like, if you effing up, I'm gonna tell you effing up. It's not no, I'm holding back because I think this person should be around here and attached to what maybe somebody can bring to a community or all of that. And it's one of those that, though, is very, like, even when I start looking at the movie and seeing the movie when he was looking for a master, and some of them are connected to the government, and the government starts to dictate what the house is doing and how they're starting to move. And he's like, hold on, man, this ain't no real dharma going on in here. Like, what's really going on? So then he moves on, but then starts to see that as he begins to move in his own journey, it's like, hold on, you can't be corrupting the people's minds into being addicted to certain things. We need them to be, so we can get to certain places. And as you start watching, it just starts to bring you to your own place and starts to see where you're at in your own journey, as far as what are some of the things that I'm clinging on to, what are some of the things that I'm holding on to that is preventing me from moving forward in my own journey. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in there as well.
Yeah, thank you. And even acknowledging, you said, what am I clinging on to? And it's like, when you recognize that, right? Or even as the football player, and it's like, okay, you can't see me, so let me give you the fullness of my name. That's such a small piece of what the connections could have been, right? So the memory, if you will, of this is who I was, or even I think her name was Oni and I could be wrong, but I think it was Oni in the movie Zen. She said, well, is it because I was a prostitute? And it's like, no, it's because you're wanting, right? Not just that. It's that idea of wanting for anything or holding on to anything. Having a level of freedom, even coming into Anu, allows us to freely come on here and to share and to build and to receive correction and to humbly and graciously say, oh, thank you, and not shut down or retreat or even feel or choose to feel embarrassed, because the reality is that that's not. It's a gift to be able to grow and to learn, and to connect, to share ideas. So yeah, thank you.
And there's a level of intimacy with that too, between student and teacher, that when now it's like, yeah, at least I'm close enough to understand that when that level of correction does come, that level of correction is coming from an intimate place of that connection of love, not in the sense of I'm beating you down just to show you I'm smarter, not that I'm beating you down just to show you you're an idiot, but I'm telling you you're wrong so you don't keep making these wrong turns, so that therefore you now can say, okay, let's move on to what is the next step and what is the next level in your own progression in your own life. But ultimately, you can't move forward and holding on to something that you think that you know, and or you think that your character is right, or if you think that, you know, I have it all together and you don't have it all together, and I'm gonna show you, well then now, even then, that's when you start to see where people are at in their own walk, in their own journey, is when they now have to take correction. Who are you to tell me? Or now, or you come in thinking that I hold some type of, I look at me because I'm the smart one in the group, but then as soon as you correct me, now I don't hold maybe the same level of reverence in the group that I used to have, because you now just correct me. So I can't have that now. So you know what? I think it's best that I fall back. You know, I think it's best that I was in here, and then that's when start seeing so many people, like I got schoolwork, my job is starting to
I help.
all of it just starts to, here it comes, like, you know, it's coming, and they give it about a day or two, and then they were like, you know what, now let me put this on you, it ain't got nothing to do with that, but I'm just letting y'all know. And it's like, nah, man, this is someone running from, though, that intimate relationship that one cultivates with their teacher, but B, more so just growing and refusing to grow and trying to look at the external as opposed to fixing the internal.
Right.
And somebody even saying, like, there has to be more than this. Even when we saw in the movie's end, it's like, nah, you're gonna sit. Nah, man, there's got to be more than just sitting. Like, or when the other group came down and said, let me see the idol that you got in there. I don't have any idol. Like, moving beyond, it's going beyond this. Like, you've done this before, you've seen this movie, let's go beyond this, and what's the next step? But so many just refusing to go on to the next step, and even finding the ways in your own self of looking at you, of what is some of the aspects in me and my own journey that is refusing to move on to the next step and trying to cling on to what I thought I had or needed in that moment.
Right. Thank you. So Master Malek says, doubting the effectiveness of simply sitting, reminds me of 2 Kings 5. The man who had leprosy, was simply told to wash himself, 7 times. And he was like, that's it, right? Like, all this time I've been, all I need to do. But maybe that's it. It was really making the connection, like doing it. 13. And his servants came near and spake unto him and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee do some great thing. Okay. Wouldst thou not have done it? How much rather then when he saith to thee, wash and be clean? So it's like, it doesn't have to be this great miraculous feat. Or this miraculous act. And I remember you sharing something, Aki-Sak, in that regard. I guess in the time when Chief Yuya was leaning more towards or sharing Orisha information, and you said you needed to see the candles, like they need to be flickering, and the lights, like the room needed to be trembling for you to know that this Ebo is working. I just remember that and thought, like, we think that it needs to come with thunderclaps and lightning bolts,
and not missing what was really going on right in front of me, of not knowing that how much energy did the divine take in order to now give me this message from the person sitting right in front of me. I'm still looking for something that has to be supernatural. I'm looking for, thunder has to start going down. The trees have to start shaking right now, or just looking like you say, or even looking for the candle and for the wick to go out, or just make it move or something. I'm looking for something, as opposed to somebody standing right in front of me though and saying, I'm telling you how to fix this. I hear all of that, but I know it has to be something more than that. And just seeing where even in religion, this whole idea of something is in the clouds and something is moving, so that therefore that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to that, going back to even that Scrooge McDuck, me not using common sense to say, you can't just jump into some coins like that, you will get a concussion. I'm looking at, no, you can just swim in money, and it's good to get money. And he's doing backstrokes in this joint and blowing money out of his mouth. This is what it is. So now I start having dreams of, how do I start to get some money like this? How do I swim in money like this? I want to have more bread than the Subway around this joint. But like, it's all a matter of, do you want to grow up? Are you willing to see the game that's being played? That therefore now what actually is going on in front of you, and saying that the divine is actually moving in front of me, or does that Willie Lynchism kick in and say this black man don't know anything? This he can't tell me nothing.
Right, right. You know, even with the question of do you want to grow up, it makes me think of, and I'm trying to go back to it, the idea of being lifted up. Sometimes it's not even us growing up, it's yielding to being lifted or raised up out of wherever we are or whatever circumstance we're in. There are so many, I mean, you can speak to it better than I can as a brother who has covered a sister. How many times has your instruction been directly to raise that sister up? It may not have come by, listen, so this is step one, because this is the problem, and this is where I need you to get, right? You may not be laying it out like that, but you know that the instruction that you're given, or those words that you're saying, or go read this, or go look into that, or what you said was not correct. However you say it, is to raise that sister up. And if she is not vulnerable and not honest, and not obedient, then it's kind of like, all right, well, okay. The connection is lost, and the connection is lost because you're not giving me anything. It's almost like you still got the bags. You referenced bag lady. You still got the bags, and I'm not even. You don't even have to climb up here or grow up here on your own momentum. Like, I'm raising you up, but yet you making it hard for me.
Right. And I think that even goes back to the Jezebel series, when you start listening to the piece where it's like, you're not validating my feelings, and going by how I feel about something. And when you said that, it didn't make me feel good in the moment. But you feeling good has nothing to do with logic and validating one's thought. I think that's what it was said
Right. You didn't validate. Right.
Right.
I didn't validate your feelings. You didn't validate the instruction, the insight that I've given you. Right.
I think that it was said in the podcast. Somebody, I just know I said that's where I got it.
You did. Y'all said it.
No, that's where I said I got it from. But it's a lot. It's those emotions or those feelings that keep us grounded, and ultimately not wanting to now elevate. So now, how can one elevate if you're not willing to let go of or strip, to understand that these things have been keeping me weighted and feeling down? So it only because I'm operating from emotions and not operating from logic to see what actually is going on in front of me. And that goes from not only with coverings, but also with the whole segment of men checking weak males.
Yeah.
And checking that weak male that's inside of us, because ultimately now it could be just like if you come into an environment and another man tells you, nah, man, you ain't got it. And it's in front of the community, or even pulling you to the side, or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden that didn't make me feel good. Screw your feelings. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Is it right? Is it wrong? What are we talking about here, so we can start to move and grow? And if we're not growing, as you said, then it's dead. Like, it's not. If something's not moving, then what is it doing? So, I think that's just always a sign for all of us to keep checking it. And it's not a thing that you feel like you conquered today, and I ain't never got to come. It's still gonna. What does it say? Like, pride comes before the fall. And then now all of a sudden, what did he say about pride? Pride is when you feel like the divine has no more to teach.
Right.
And it's a matter of, now you feel like you've gained maybe from other people, because you can look and see how far you came, and maybe you know something, and now you feel like you're all high and mighty. But you understand that you're never to a place. It's always peaks and valleys, where you learn and you unlearn and then relearn and then you keep learning. But it's never a place where, oh, I got it now, I'm good to go. Now it's like, okay, if you're good to go, then watch me snatch this rug from underneath your face, your feet, and then see how far you can stand or move, and go from there. So,
right, yeah. The climbing is continual, right? We're always striving and always growing, and And I think that's even why there's so much value in defining things, defining a word, or, going back and revisiting a particular piece of scripture, because that word or that scripture, it'll have a specific meaning at this time. But when you go back to it, if you're growing and you're expanding, and that's sometimes where that, yeah, I read that. Yeah, I read it. No, I read it twice. That's where some of that arrogance comes from, because you didn't take it in, or as you have quoted Chief Yuya as having said, if it has to be in you and not on you,
come on.
You're wearing those words, and so therefore those words are not inside of you. Like me even saying, okay, I'm going to talk about intimacy. I'm going to talk about intimacy, and I'm going to have to own it. Like, own that this is where I am. I'm like at step 0.00001. But yet my ego will say, well, that's not enough. You don't know enough. You don't have enough information. You need to study some more so that when you speak on it, you can be the expert. No, I'm never going to be the expert. That's not even the point. Like Chief was covering that in our study session this strong. We're never going to be like in this space of perfection. We're human. That's not even what the goal is. So even thinking of Zen, he took what he was able to receive and moved based on the vision. Right? So he was almost like that seed, the seed that's in the ground, and then it like cracks open and then something sprouts. He was the something that sprouted. The seed was, this is how we do this thing. Go look for right instruction. Go find the true meaning of this thing, and then take it, similar to the Anu way, and then take it and make it something that the people can connect with. Make it something more than that. Be vulnerable. They will ask you, well, how can you know that when you just thought intimacy was sex? And then you have to say, well, yeah. Yeah, that's what led to the journey of even beginning to look into this. Well, what the heck? So then so then what do you do? Right? And so guess what? So then I do recognize what intimacy is. So it was in this instance, and it was this person sharing a photo with me, and it was this disclosure. And then it's like, oh, I've been having intimate moments all the time. But how many did I miss out on because I was completely detached or stuck in that, in that fear, or in that, anxiety or worry or guilt, or the guilt of thinking that I needed to be on here and actually be the great orator that knows about everything, soup to nuts, about what I'm talking about. That ain't it. Because Chief can pop on here any moment and be like, everything she said was
get rid of it.
Right. And I'll be like, all right, though.
Right.
I tried.
Right.
That's it.
There's a couple of things that you said that made me think of, you was like even defining things, and it moves when one can start to define things, it starts to move one away from the mysticism of now certain words having certain effect over somebody, and that effect is ultimately of the feelings that one starts to move on. So when one says certain words like God or devil, those are certain triggers in somebody that's going to make them feel a certain way. But if you haven't defined these words, then those words can start to control you and manipulate you to get you to do what somebody else wants you to do. So that's why I think it's very important that one takes the time to, as they would crack open a mango or crack open a watermelon, to crack open a word and see, well, let's inspect this word, let's see this word, let's ingest this word, let's see what this word actually means. And then you say, oh man, I was putting more on this word than ultimately what I should have been. And something else that you said, even, which made me think of going back to the movie Zen, there were so many lessons that he learned on his journey, but one of the biggest ones that I saw was even in the movie was when he came to the chef, when he was walking across, and he was, the first thing he did was like, oh, let me take that load from you. You're an old gentleman. You should be in a time in your life where you should be studying. You should be doing something else, but yet you're out here carrying this and you're cooking. And he was like, you seem like a wise guy, but two things you seem to be missing is word and practice. Which that small thing put him on a journey of saying that, what you do need more work. And it made me think of, I want to say it was in the Jezebel #3. And I think somebody had asked a question about, they weren't sure about Polymaambe or Santeria and getting initiated in it. And that was one of the things that Chief had even said in there was, I've been through both of those systems. I know you understand you got cut for no reason. And even being in those systems, I have even went and surpassed my teacher, which then I started going back to this movie Zen again, right? And going back to the lessons of just learning from the chef, learning from teachers who ultimately are there just for some spiritual capitalism and not really taking the time to say, what, how many times have you heard education over initiation? Because there's no sense of you doing something or going through something if you don't even know what you're doing. And then when you hear something like that, or somebody saying that I got this initiation, but now I don't, and I'm not putting it on him because I've done the same thing where I've ordered pots and I've got this stuff, and at $1,500 later, okay, what do I do with this?
Right.
And you done paid $1,500. Why would you pay something if you don't even know what you're getting?
As have I. Absolutely.
Right. But it's that spookism, though, that if I don't do it, then maybe I think there's going to be bad karma that's coming into my life, or there's going to be something negative that's going to come into my life if I don't do it, as opposed to, just sit. Is what he said in the movie. Just sit underneath a teacher that's telling you, man, I've done all of these things. I'm telling you, this is, if you just are willing to open yourself up and learn, and and practice some humility in the situation, you can then start to grow, as opposed to just keep doing these reoccurring cycles, or just being in these cyclical cycles of, I get to some place of nirvana because I feel good in the moment and I learn something, and the next thing you know, I sink back down because I get away from what got me to that place of the education and learning and opening up the book, and then I go back to my old habits of, well, I'm just chilling, and now I'm ruminating and cogitating on some of the things that can go wrong, and I know it is going to go wrong, and I know because I did this is what's happening to me now. No, it's just staying consistent in that flow of just sitting underneath the teacher, of sitting in the work, of reading the book. And that's why it says in the Anu way, this should be read daily. It's a daily practice, because if you take a day off, this system is not taking a day off. Even if we go back to, I always go back to the book. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna stop because I feel like I'm getting long-winded. But you're going back to the book of Stolen Focus. And even in Stolen Focus, where it says all of these teams are sitting behind a screen trying to figure out how to get you more addicted to the screen.
Right.
So it's not just you feeling like, oh, I got to do this on my own, or whatever the case may be. There's people working against you. So now it's a daily work that you're going to have to work to get out of it. To say, you know what, in order for me to focus on the things that I need to focus on, I got to consistently commit myself every day to sit down and meditate, to sit down and not to get into senseless arguments or senseless debates about things that have nothing to do with nothing other than trying to feed my ego or making me feel like I'm right, or trying to feel like I'm superior over somebody. Understanding that other people are in certain walks in their journeys in their lives, that when they say certain comments, understanding of where they're at, and it doesn't need a response in that moment. But all of those things of just putting to your growth of saying that, okay, this is what now, where I am, what it's going to look like in this moment. But ultimately, always checking back in with that pastor or that imam or there's somebody who's further along to say, okay, what is it that I need on this journey as we start moving forward and growing? But the whole time, one is wanting to grow. So when you were speaking, it just made me think of a couple of those things too.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you were not talking too much. Thank you. It was all good stuff. in listening, in your example of all of the schemes that are there, and I see Anu Radio. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna wait. I'll come back to that. Anu Radio says, so true. Secular culture is not taking a day off. It made me think about how the word is to remain alive in us. The only way is by being active, right? Just like our body begins to atrophy if we're not active, if we're not moving. I mean, if you sit, even in that, with that idea of sitting, after a while you sit, so it's like you become numb, right? So just using that as the counter for that momentum that's needed. If we're not doing those things that you delineated, and that is, instructed in the Anu way, as far as being studious, as far as moving our body every day, and as far as, reading the Anu way aloud every day, in each and every one of those steps, those instructions, those words, there is medicine. And you may not understand it, or I may not understand it as such until it begins to work, which means I'm working it. I'm applying it. I'm being obedient. I'm coming under those instructions. And then that's when it's like, oh wait a minute. Something changed. And guess what? The lights didn't flicker. And and the candle didn't get blown out. But I am changed, right? And so it's like we miss that because we allow ourselves to be sucked up into what the world already has established, right? That vacuum. So it's almost like the guidance in the Anu way is kind of like, okay, this is how you stay severed from this succubus, from this system that is going to suck you in. And it's really easy to see when one of us are kind of falling back, right? It's like, oh no, it's a literal fallback. And you're like, no, don't fall for it. Say, don't do it, reconsider, read some literature. But it's like, this is not what you want to do. So I was definitely following you. Yeah, I was taking that good ride right along with you. And really the charge is be doing something. Be doing. Focus on being every single day. Make a commitment. Like, go back and listen to the command of the day number 18. Like, go and dig into the particular scripture. Or I think y'all know, on that podcast, at least I know the sisters know, on this last Strong's podcast, which was Jezebel, but speaking about communication in particular, I took that proverb and I looked at it every which way. So when that comes at the end of Zen, I was just like, oh my gosh, this helps. This makes so much more sense, particularly since everything was about not being emotional, remaining detached, right? Being steadfast about the mission, taking these 8 steps, that'll help you be this great. I think it was 8. Oh gosh, I have to go back. I didn't write it down. It was the 8 somethings to being like was a great human. I got it completely wrong, but I do have it written down, so I'm gonna go to it. But it's like looking at the 8 awakenings of great beings. That was it. The 8 awakenings of great beings. It made it clear that we've got to move through these. And interestingly enough, it was connected to episode 88. That was not an accident. I'm pretty sure of it, y'all. So you got to look at the medicine there. Like everything was that number 8. But just being able to look at those steps and to see how in the middle was remember the lessons. Like, so you get this far into it, don't go back. Like, don't go back to attachment. Remember the teachings and continue to climb, continue to stay free. So with that, I think there were a couple of comments. If there was something that we should highlight, if it pops up, I'll read it. Give thanks. Savanit says, I wanted to make reference to your point, Aki. Some people won't leave the false doctrine and false idols because of fear. Yeah, they fear that a weak God, but I wanted to say that there is nothing more. Yeah, there's nothing more than turning your back on those false gods and knowing that he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Absolutely. So that requires you turn away from those lowercase gods. Absolutely.
And I was just going to say, even on that journey, I want people to understand it doesn't get easier, right? It doesn't.
No.
It's not like you just, oh yeah, after a year it's gonna be totally fine, and relationships with other people who they're just gonna leave you alone. Da, 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 da. It doesn't get easier, but what happens is you get stronger, and when you get stronger, then that's when people start to be like, oh damn, you make it look easy. Yeah, because it's that constantly of staying in the word, or staying on, or what am I learning today, or constantly showing up to, Wednesday study sessions, constantly looking at the show Improve with Aki, constantly just being on the Friday segments, constantly, it's just consistently being in the flow. And when one is consistently in the flow, then that's when you'll look back and be like, damn, I came a long way. But I still have a long way to go, though. So it's always in between. But you are getting stronger in that moment. And it's not until what's the journey of a steps begin, journey of 1,000 steps begin with one step. You got to first commit yourself to that step, though, and then commit yourself to another step. And that comes back to that faith cometh by hearing and hearing the word. If you don't consistently keep hearing and hearing and hearing, then that means it's almost like charging your watch. You got an Apple Watch or somebody else, and you just charge it and you leave it off. It'll slowly start just dying. Because now it's not doing anything but just sitting there. If we just sit there and don't commit ourselves to reading, don't commit ourselves to studying, don't commit ourselves to a teacher, don't commit yourself to anything, you slowly will start to revert back to your old coping mechanism. You slowly will revert back to your battery starting to die. And now it's not like in that other command today when it was talking about having those pillars of truth or knowing and faith as your bodyguard. Now your bodyguard begins to lose a little weight, and now it's like, yeah, you know what? Something told me I should be over there. This is why, I shouldn't have committed myself over here, because you haven't just committed yourself to keep taking that next step, and then take the next step, and then all of a sudden you start to get stronger. Now you start looking around and say, hey, or like that movie Shrek, when my man told Donkey not to look down. It's like, just don't look down, keep walking. And then you start looking, I'm looking down. And it looks like I'm going to fall, and all of this is going to fall around me. And I'm like, so many people have done this before. I'm telling you, if you just listen, like Chief told me one time, and I used to tell him, he's like, how you doing, man? I'm like, I'm keeping my head above water, brother. And he's like, man, you ain't supposed to be keeping your head above water. You're supposed to be walking on water. And I'm like, man, you can't walk on no water. Like, I never say that out loud because I was trying to be cool, but I'm like, man, that's in a book. Like, that's a very walking on water. He's like, this water is just your own thoughts, the creations of your own thoughts. But if I want to stay in that place, or do I want to now get up to where he's at? Like, okay, you're going to have to start climbing. You're going to have to start working. How can now somebody say this statement and not even back away from it? Like, no, I'm telling you because I've done it. So now how does he do that? Well, now take the step. And that step is, now I gotta trust this person in front of me, that they actually, now the bridge they extended, they actually they know that they can hold their own weight. That's in the 40. Now that's they can hold their own weight. And if it can hold their own weight, then I'm telling you, I'm not giving you something that I haven't tried before. Right. So, and I think that that's just so important of understanding then that, okay, you're going to have to start taking that journey. So when you start taking that journey, you get stronger and your faith starts to increase, and then your aura starts to expand. And then all of a sudden people start asking you, well, can you tell me how you did it? Can you tell me what are some things that I can do on my journey? And you be like, and then the first thing well, I'm not anywhere near where I'm supposed to be. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Like, I am, but I do have something that I can give back, because these are some of the things that I've learned, not just hoarding all of the information because I learned it. Now you just got to go figure it out yourself. And even like you said, not even me not know. Now, if you don't know something, don't just start winging it and they're like, nah, this is what I think it means, because then you could throw somebody off and turn them so far from spirituality or whatever the case may be that they don't even want nothing to do with it. But of sharing a little bit that one does know in order to now reach one, teach one, or get back and make them start to grow as well. So.
Yeah. And then I knew it's like absolutely. That's the charge, right? It's like, how can I thank you? It's like, well, just share the information and offer it, which means it needs to be in you. Like you need to take it in order to regurgitate it, like we should be able to teach it if we've truly ingested it. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Even the comments in the chat. Absolutely. Did you want to offer any? I see you reaching for the
Oh no, I thought you was kicking me out, so I was just gonna hit leave. But I'm gonna say this before I go. If you're going to regurgitate something, you make sure you can stand on that. Don't regurgitate something and I'm saying this from experience of saying something and then not really having a firm grasp of what one has said, and then when a question comes, then all of a sudden it's, well, you should go check out Chief's episode, or you should
go see the podcast, right?
Right. It's can I now back this up and answer it from a few different angles. Right. Now, there's a difference between somebody trolling and them just trying to dig into you, and somebody actually trying to gain an understanding of what you're saying. And when one's trying to actually gain an understanding of what you're saying, and you cannot provide any context or anything else other than just repeating something from what somebody else said, becomes very dangerous. That what you're giving somebody again is now you extending that bridge, and you don't know if it can hold your weight, because the only thing you're doing is repeating what somebody else said. So it's very important to commit yourself to a teaching, commit yourself to a doctrine, commit yourself to something that you're going to say, I am totally going to give myself to this, to make sure that I am not in the same place that I am today, that I will be next year or next month or whatever the case may be. Putting that battle plan together, and then because there's going to be a time where you're going to be all hunky-dory and it's going to feel good, and then all of a sudden, about a month in, it's going to feel like work. Now, do you still have that same commitment, fire, and passion, or whatever you call it, to say, I'm going to keep going because I want to learn and I want to grow? Or do you start to revert back to your old ways and your old habits and your old coping mechanisms that got you the same thing? So just commit yourself and be intimate with the process, be intimate with your teacher, be intimate with the group, of saying, you know what, I'm willing to show my scars. I'm willing to, because that's only going to get you closer to where you need to be. And the more you start to hide, the more you start to, that demon starts to grow. And then when other people call it out, either you're going to try to run because you don't feel like people are calling you out, or you're just going to say, you know what, I want to unburden this, and I'm willing to go. I want to get past this. So yes, let me show this demon so that I can conquer this demon and move on. It doesn't mean that there won't be any more, but at least you start to move past the ones that you've been suppressing for up until this point.
Thank you.
All right. And I'm out. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Akizak. Akizak just closed it out for us. Everything that he just said requires us to be vulnerable and to be honest. As he says, share those scars, as we all have many. So with that, I thank you for being here. I want to just share some announcements, some updates. Our sister, wow, I was even. Thank you. So there's one announcement. You can grab a copy of Scriptural Guide to Overcoming 7 Mental Ailments, the book I recently published. It goes through a bunch of things that we experience every day that we've touched on even here, and how we use scripture and different activities like the one that I shared about going into nature, along with some other tools. I won't share all of them, to really help move us to that place of being an overcomer. Also, the Anu retreat is coming really soon. I'm so happy to share that the Honored Retreat will be in New Orleans, and our dates and location have been confirmed. The retreat dates are August 24th through the 28th, and we will be at the Bayou Signet in New Orleans. If you have registered, I'm sure you'll receive additional information about how you go ahead and make your deposit. Everything is all inclusive with the exception of getting to the retreat space. So that means you will fellowship with us, bring a musical instrument so you can join our evening build sessions and musical circles. And I think there are a few other things that you should bring, but it's just usual things that you would pack. And see us there. We are going to have a fabulous time. I also want to share that one component of Honor Life Global Ministries, one of the ministries is the Red Wrap. And we actually have an event coming up in North Carolina. Here it is. There will be a menstrual hygiene drive. Actually, I think there might still be time to get some donations delivered to the site, but we have 2 dates coming up. They're actually next week. So if you're in the area and you're interested in joining Red Wrap, or if you're interested in donating your time or resources to the Red Wrap Initiative, you can follow the instructions listed here. I look forward to seeing you all on May 24th and May 26th, respectively. And there will be so many more events coming soon, particularly here in North Carolina. So with that, I thank you so much for taking this time and being open, honest, vulnerable, and intimate with me. I will that you all have received something from this. And please share. Thank you so much. Share. The Anu membership working into the background force you to plug. I, it does force me. Because yeah, it does. And thank you so much, Anu Radio, for working on the ones and twos in the background and keeping things flowing here. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was excited about this build, because yeah, when we're choosing to just be a reflection and do as the charge requires, then all preparations and provisions are made. So I am thankful to my covering, and ultimately thankful to Yah for grace every moment of every single day, because I am nothing but grateful. With that, peace to you all. Have a fantastic first day. Affirm how you can be more vulnerable and become more intimate, and share love and connection with those around you. Peace.